little bit of housekeeping here. Welcome to the town of Barnstable. This is our formal site plan review. Today's date is November 16th, 2023. My name is Brian Florence. I'll be the chair of this meeting. You may have noticed that the meeting is recorded. I have to ask, excuse me here, hold on a second. This meeting is recorded and broadcast on the town's government access channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, please make your presence known. Seeing none. Okay, the purpose of site plan review is to ensure that the site plan for a proposed development is in compliance with local, state, and federal regulations before a project is submitted for permitting. To that end, this meeting brings all of the town's regulatory agencies together in one place so that you don't have to go from department to department in order to try to understand what's required of you in order to obtain a permit. While we may, as a courtesy, provide insight into what regulations may apply to your project, such as building permitting and things like that, this should not be construed to be an approval of those activities that are regulated elsewhere. The way this process works, we'll read your case into the record. You as the applicant will then have an opportunity to give a brief presentation. From there, I'll ask that staff comments and questions. Once staff has completed their portion of the meeting, I'll open the floor to public comment. If you'd like to speak and you're a member of the public, please raise your hand or let us or indicate through Zoom that you wish to be heard. It'd be helpful if you could mute your microphones until the chair calls on you to speak. And we ask that you state your name before speaking. If you need to share your plans, we have made arrangements for you to do so. If you don't know how to share your plans, just let one of us know and we'll assist you. Maggie takes notes of this proceeding and will provide our applicants with a letter outlining any outstanding matters, conditions that need to be addressed. So please don't feel like you have to take notes for this. With that said, we will go ahead and read the first case into the record.
Good morning. Our first case and only case today is an agenda item with public comment. Site plan review 23-70 for 307 Main Street, Nominee Trust. It looks like we have quite a team here, but represented mainly by Rob Brennan and his full team. The address is 307 Main Street, Hyannis, map parcel 327103. The zoning is downtown Main Street, as well as the Hyannis Historic District, as well as the AP overlay. The work proposed under this application consists of the demolition of the existing building and appurtenant structures and constructing a 4-story, 120-unit mixed income residential building, along with parking, landscaping, and related improvements. This application is being continued from informal site plan review meetings held on 8/15/2023 and 10/24/2023, and updated documents have been provided throughout.
Thank you, Maggie. And who'd like to start this presentation today?
Thank you, Mr. Florence. Rob Brennan, attorney, Smolik and Vaughn, representing Wind Development. My privilege to kick things off today, and I do want to start, first with just a thank you to town staff and all the department heads who have been working with us now. I believe it's going on over 6 months, and understanding that this is one of the first major projects in the downtown Main Street district, as Maggie indicated. We appreciate time and attention and the participation that went into this, both informally and as we proceeded, through historic. Downtown Main Street is the most walkable district in Barnstable. And I think this is, in addition to the broad spectrum of affordability that a developer like Wynn is going to be able to bring to this project, the prospect of putting 120 new residents on Main Street, walking those streets, I think is going to be a significant benefit to all Main Street businesses and residences. So we're very proud of the work that's been done here. I also will note, as part of the discussions and agreements with the town, Wynn has entered into an agreement to contribute $250,000 to traffic and pedestrian improvements in the proximity of 307 Main Street to be undertaken at the discretion of the town as to the specifics and as to timing. So with that, it's my privilege to hand it over to the team from WIN, who I think will add some additional comments before going into the technical presentation.
Sure, thanks, Rob. Again, just want to quickly say I appreciate all the work. I know that our team has been working hand in hand with the various town departments, and what you'll see today is reflective of those conversations. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions, but I'm going to turn it over to the design team to walk you through a brief presentation in terms of architecture, civil, landscaping, and then traffic. Genevieve, well, I think, Paula, you're going to share your screen, correct? Okay.
So now I can share.
Great. Well, I'm Genevieve Frank with Icon Architecture. I'm a project manager there, and very happy to be here this morning. Thank you for taking the time. So you want to go to the next slide? So Beals and Thomas will dive into this a little bit more later in the presentation, but as you can see, our site is situated on the corner of Main Street and Old Colony Road, which is really a gateway into the downtown historic Hyannis district. And so it's very important that we design the building accordingly. So we have a very simple floor plan where we have at grade parking for a majority of the site. And then we do have the corner of the building. It's going to be activated with the lobby with entrances on both the Main Street and the drop-off zone, as well as the amenity leasing area and some service space for the building. So we're going to go to the next slide. So as Rob mentioned, we've been working, I think, with everyone for the past 6 months to really hone in on the design for the building. And it was very important that we take into consideration the form-based code and the comments that we received from the Historic Commission. So as I mentioned, this is a very important gateway into the site. So we wanted to have a really nautical feel at this corner element, kind of turning the building so that it faces the main intersection as you enter this district. And feel like we accomplished that nautical feel with the paneling, the trim, and also adding the Barnstable brick, which was mentioned as very important to incorporate. And we tried to use the brick to really anchor the building, one at this main corner piece, but also at the ends of the building as well. As also part of the form-based code, we incorporated the different roof forms to really break up the massing. We have the larger gable elements and as well as like gabled dormers on the 4th floor. So it really starts to feel like a 3.5-story building, not a full 4th floor. And we also paid attention to the setbacks along Main Street because we wanted to really activate that edge because it is a very heavy pedestrian area. And we want to encourage that activation. So even at the facade where we have garage parking behind, we'll have windows with the frosted spandrel panels. So it still feels like there's activity going on, even though there's parking behind. And as this main corner element will be the most active zone with the amenity leasing space and lobby in this corner. You want to go to the next slide. So this is the view coming up Old Colony Road. So we, and I think Paula will speak more to the landscaping that's going on later, but we again wanted to really activate this edge because this is going to be a primary, visual point for people coming up Old Colony Road. So we incorporated Juliet balconies along a lot of the facades. So I think almost every unit along these edges gets a Juliet balcony to kind of interact with this courtyard space. We also maintained the sloped roof form around the perimeter of the building and broke it up with some smaller gabled elements to really complement the primary facade design of the building. I'll pass it over to Beals and Thomas now for the next slide. Oh, sorry. As I mentioned before, the community space will be in that center corner of the building. So it is, very active along Main Street, and there's a lot of visual connection.
I am Paula Thompson from Beals and Thomas. We are the civil engineers and surveyors on the project. This is a topographic plan showing the existing conditions. It's an existing office building with access off of Main Street and actually 2 access points off of Old Colony with a surface parking lot. The proposed plan, as Genevieve mentioned, is a 4-story residential building, 120 units, with surface parking underneath the first level for the western side of the building. And surface parking totals 122 spaces, so just over the 1-to-1 requirement. We have maintained the access off of Main Street, identifying that as primarily fire access only for this project. So the residents will enter from Old Colony and exit onto Old Colony. That will be our primary access. The building is elevated over the entrance driveway, and the entrance driveway has been designed to meet the requirements of the Hyannis fire truck with regard to slope of the driveway and clearance height. And the parking spaces meet the zoning requirements for 1-to-1, and they're varied in spaces as we have columns underneath the building. So some of them are smaller spaces, 8.5 by 18 instead of 9 by 18, which is the majority of the site. The utilities have been worked out with engineering department. So we have a subsurface infiltration system for all the impervious areas on site. There's actually 3 areas of subsurface infiltration. The stormwater from paved areas is treated before it goes into those infiltration areas, and they're designed to capture all the runoff. We don't have any connections into the town storm drainage system because we know there are overflow issues. So if this does overflow in a very large storm, it would just come out one of the surface catch basins, potentially pond in the area, and then flow overland to existing drainage patterns off-site. We have also worked with engineering to only have 1 sewer connection out into Main Street. And we are utilizing an existing sewer connection so that we don't tap into an older asbestos cement sewer that is in Main Street. We also have domestic and fire protection services off of Main Street. And then our other utilities, gas for hot water only, tel data and electric will come off of Old Colony Road. And I am now going to pass it over to Dave Lapointe in my office, who's a registered landscape architect, and he is filling in for Regan, who you probably met at one of the informal meetings.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. As she mentioned, my name is Dave Lapointe. I'm a registered landscape architect with Beals and Thomas. She's displaying the landscape plan here, which you can see we've incorporated a robust landscape design with primarily native trees and shrubs throughout the site to enhance the development, particularly along Main Street. We've incorporated a lot of landscaping to improve that streetscape along the Main Street corridor. As you can see along Old Colony Road, particularly on the southern edge of it there is a fairly large separation between the curb edge and where the parking is, where primarily a lot of that vegetation may remain, but we have tried to supplement it along the edge of the parking to provide a little bit of screening there. But as I had mentioned, primarily native plant materials with the intent that even though there will be an irrigation system as part of the project, with the use of native plant materials, the intent is that over time, once they become established, they won't have much or won't have to rely on supplemental irrigation. And as you can see, there are a couple of examples of some of the site lighting and some of the other site furnishings that are being incorporated as well. The post lights are dark sky compliant LED fixtures. Within those onion lights are more of a traditional cape type feature that you might find throughout other locations in Hyannis. But the intent here is obviously to provide a attractive site, but with a low level of horticultural input, low maintenance, but using materials that are suitable for the area that will enhance and make an attractive site overall. And really that's all I have to mention on the landscape, and I can turn it over to Erin to discuss the traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Erin Cameron. I'm with Stantec Consulting Services. We provided traffic engineering support on this project. And I am part of the same team that was on the Great Streets Downtown Hyannis project last year. The traffic study conducted for 307 Main Street was a fairly typical and industry standard analysis using ITE, which is the Institute for Transportation Engineers, trip generation calculations that were adjusted using the National Household Travel Survey average vehicle occupancy rate for residential trips, and adjusted for the town of Barnstable journey to work mode share of 95% auto as reported by the US Census Bureau. These trips were looked at in the AM and PM peak hours, and the PM peak hours are typically higher for residential buildings of this type, as this is consistent with the evening peak of downtown Hyannis. The transportation analysis looked at the PM peak hour in more detail than the AM. The transportation analysis was also conducted on 2 roadway networks, as is described on this slide here. The first was the existing with the existing traffic signals at the 3 intersections surrounding the project, and the proposed roadway network uses the recommendations established in the Great Streets Downtown Hyannis of including 2-way conversions of Main Street, Old Colony, and Ocean Street, and replacing Main Street at Ocean Street and Old Colony Road at Center Street signals with all-way stops. Additionally, we modeled a roundabout for the 6-point intersection, as well as multimodal improvements. The transportation analysis was conducted in Synchro, which is an industry standard, which uses about a 30-mile-per-hour design speed for these streets. That's very standard in Synchro, and we would only adjust it in specific situations that this project did not dictate. That analysis showed that there's less than a 4-second delay as a result of this project at any intersection in the immediate area surrounding this study. The next slide, if you can go to it, just shows some detail of that study and how we got to those 4 seconds by distributing the trips on the 2 roadway networks. First, the existing roadway network and the proposed. You will see that all of the trips in both scenarios are coming in off Old Colony Road. That is because Old Colony Road has the primary project access as opposed to the Main Street, which is intended to be for emergency access only. And that is what I have for you all.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Nope, that's our presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Can you drop the screen share? Excellent. Okay, we'll bring it back to staff. Maggie, have we received any correspondence on this matter?
I have not, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we will go ahead and start with Kate.
Good morning, Kate Maldonato, Planning and Development. The subject property is located in the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District. The applicant has already received approval for both the demolition of the existing structure as well as construction of the proposed structure from that historic commission. In accordance with the town's inclusionary affordable housing requirements, 10% of the units will need to be deed restricted at 65% of the area median income. The applicant has submitted a landscape plan that has been signed by a registered landscape architect. We will also coordinate the financial security for 150% of the costs for both the plant installation and duration of 3 years after the planting has been installed for that maintenance. And that financial security will need to be provided prior to certificate of occupancy. And then finally, the applicant has mentioned the donation of the $250,000. Sorry, coffee hasn't hit me yet. And that is for use in connection with pedestrian and vehicle improvement. And we are asking that that donation is coordinated no later than 90 days following the issuance of a building permit for this project. And that are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Next is engineering.
Matt Roble, DPW Engineering. As they alluded to in their presentation, we've had plenty of back and forth over the last couple of months, so I'm going to keep my comments kind of restricted to their responses in this last informal site plan review letter. First and foremost is the request for an updated stormwater operations and maintenance plan. Just looking for that updated operations and maintenance plan to be submitted and approved by DPW. As part of the building permit approval process, as previously discussed. Second point being the access driveway off of Main Street. I saw that you guys made the updates to the brick inlay and the flush granite curbing along the front of the project there. Just one point that I wanted to question relating to those couple of parking spaces under the facade area. And the first 2 parking spaces coming off Main Street. I wasn't sure for the ones underneath the building if the column that's on the edge of that access driveway is going to be included within the facade or not. It may just be a worthwhile idea to explore putting a couple of more of those do not enter signs if a few of those vehicles will be beyond the sign that's currently proposed on the back side of that building. But that's more of an engineering judgment call for your design team. From there, along the same lines, we're looking to see the updated construction O&M plan as part of the building permit approval process. You guys had mentioned that you guys will have that prepared once you have a contractor selected and they've had a chance to put together their own operations and maintenance on the site. And I wanted to make sure, were you guys able to get in touch with Andy Bernier, the tree warden, as part of verifying the plantings? Or do I still owe you guys that contact information?
We have not to date, but it is on our list to do prior to building.
Okay, I just couldn't remember if I'd sent that off to you or not. But just so that you guys can coordinate that.
Sorry, Matt, do we have that information? If not, Matt, do you mind? I don't think I do. Do you mind just?
I'll send a follow-up email. That's kind of what I thought. So I'll send that after the meeting wraps up. And then that just about covers everything from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Health Division, please.
Thank you, Brian. David Stanton with Health. The only comment we have is if they rent out the units, they will need to register them with the Health Division. Thank you.
Thank you. Building Division.
Thank you, Brian. Jeff Carter, Building Division. I don't have any new notes, but I'll just go over a couple of comments that were provided at informal. Demo permit is going to be required for the structure that's on the property. We do want confirmation of utility shutoffs with that building permit application. The new structure will be required to be under construction control. And I will confirm that we are anticipating that a third-party reviewer for the building permit is how we're going to be reviewing this project. And sign permits will be required to get a permit through the Building Division as well. That's our comments, Brian.
Great, thank you. Hyannis Fire.
Good morning, Brian. Tim Lamb, Hyannis Fire Department Fire Prevention. we've been in touch with Paul going over some of the turn template concerns that we've had. Couple quick questions on that. It looks like the parking island that's in the center of the main entrance has been reconfigured a little bit, Paul. Is that the one that it's planned to go with? Okay, thank you. And another quick question, if it can be answered. What's the canopy height going to be as far as for the parking area itself? If anybody knows.
Genevieve.
Yeah, I believe we're trying to maintain the 13 feet. Because it's not intended for the fire truck to go underneath the building.
Oh yeah,
so
we understand that, but just looks like you're gonna be able to pass through from one side to the other at the very end there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And other than that, we would have preferred it to be able to turn the tower truck around up in the parking lot, but where it meets the 150-foot threshold, we'll do our best to make do with that at this time. And other than that, like a little bit of impact on the plantings when the time comes to make sure that it's not going to impact what's a fairly narrow area for us to get our equipment in, especially on that center island and the interior edge of the initial run up to the parking area. With that, a couple other things for the record, along with building, for the demo permit and construction, we're going to be looking for NFPA 241 plan, safeguarding construction, and we'd like to be included, see fire protection included in the third-party review as well for everything. With that, that's about it for Hyannis Fire. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. I just noticed Director Jenkins just logged in. Director Jenkins, do you have anything you'd like to add? I'll take your silence as a no.
Thank you, Building Commissioner Florence. No comments.
Okay, thank you. Asset management, please.
Thank you, Brian. Grace Rogers, Asset Management. No new comments, just a reiteration of what was said last time to ensure that if the sidewalk is going to be repaved, that it meets ADA compliance and DPW specifications. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And licensing.
Thank you, Brian. There are no licensing requirements for this application.
Very good, thank you. As this is a public meeting, we would like to make a right opportunity for anyone in the public who would like to speak. Anybody? Mr. Bornstein, I've seen you unmuted your microphone. Is there something you'd like to say?
Yes, quite a bit. Can we call the plan up, the site plan, to talk about it?
Sure. Somebody from your team like to pull up the site plan, Mr. Brennan?
Yes, I think, Paula, do you have the?
I assume you're talking specifically about the parking plan, Mr. Bornstein?
Parking problem plan, yes, the one that shows all the details. Yeah, okay, that's good. I like to say that it's a nice looking plan. It's a nice looking building. I'm glad it's being something proposed, but there's a lot of issues here that got to be addressed. Number one, the egress or entrance on Main Street. If we go down that street, it's basically used by the tenants next door. It's a two-way. I imagine a lot of the people that are going to live there are going to use it to get into their building, their parking space. If not, they got to go through two red lights and go all the way around to get into the parking. So it's going to be a pretty heavily used street. And if we look right here, we have 20 plus parking spaces that are 16 feet long when it's 19 required, which means they're going to be backing out into the right of way, if not hanging out right of way. We kept it pretty clear. We have one person that parks their car in our building, has a jog right in there because there's a door for their apartment. That can be rectified, but they don't meet the requirements of the length of their parking. They're 3 feet short. It's an important 3 feet to get in and out. Further along, if you look at all these poles supporting the building up, and you're around 8 to 8.5 feet wide parking spaces, to swing a car in there to get in is difficult, especially when you're 3 feet short in the aisle to get in. What's required and what we have here is two different stories. we're 3 feet short on this drive-through aisle to get in. So if somebody's parked over here and you're trying to get in and you're trying to get around the pole, and these things are also kind of narrow. I mean, it's almost impossible to pull a car in with these poles to sweep around. You don't have the sweep. And 70% of the cars on the vehicles that are sold are SUVs and vans and trucks. Go down to the parking lots at the mall or the car dealers. This is what they put on there. And these things are definitely undersized. They do not meet the requirements of the town for size. Really a major problem there. And it's going to really come back to bite. You got one parking space per vehicle. And the reality is most people, or half the people in there, are going to have more than one car. We don't have any off-street parking. We don't have public transportation. So you have a real problem. Where are you going to put the extra cars? And I know the town says we got 14,000 parking spaces downtown, but they're not here. They're other places. And the other places are the problem. When you come in and you're shopping, it's snow, it's raining, you're not going to walk a half a mile to get to your parking space. You're really not. And this, I know the town passed a law, 1 parking space per unit, but they don't even have 1 car parking space per unit. All these poles, you got roughly 25 or 30 poles in there. You're impacting 30, double the parking space. You're impacting 50 parking spaces to get in and out. And they're all short and they're all narrow. I mean, it's a question of 1 or 2 or 3, and they claim we're going to pack compact cars. There aren't that many. The zoning is not based on compact cars. It's based on full-length cars. And we're not addressing that issue. They're trying to put too many parking spaces underneath the building and outside the building that don't work. And that's not the town standard. And this thing is definitely out of line. And it's going to impact the whole area because a lot of people aren't going to be able to park their car unless they got a sunroof and they can climb out the top. They're too narrow and they're too short. And to make it worse, again, I'm going to reiterate, the driveway is 3 feet short between spaces to get in and out. That 3 feet's a real important 3 feet. And it's all through the whole building. And you're facing us up with some problems. I have a couple other small things.
Mr. Bornstein, excuse me 1 second. We get the picture. The parking spaces are too short. The parking spaces are too narrow. There are poles that are going to interfere with the parking, and the access is 3 feet too short. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up?
Well, this is a big consideration to grant a permit for it. They don't meet the parking requirements.
I understand.
I think that's, and also parking in a right of way. We share this with the building, but again, I want to emphasize they're really short and they're backing up into a right of way.
I understand that. We'll take that into consideration. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up?
No, that is what I'm really concerned with.
Okay. All right. Well, we will take that into consideration as we go forward. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss, we're happy to do that. Would you mind dropping the screen share? I'm sorry, it is Paula. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, I would bring this back to Mr. Brennan and his team. Do you have anything you'd like to speak of with respect to the public comments you've heard?
Only to the extent if there's any questions that you would like us to address.
All right. What about the length and width of the parking spaces?
Well, I mean, first of all, before turning it over to the technical team, one thing I will say is just the premise that Mr. Bornstein started with, that this is not, there's no available public transportation. I think that this district in particular was designed to not only utilize the existing extensive public transportation, which includes, both the extensive Regional Transit Authority bus schedule, but also the RTA's Smart Dart, which is effectively, an on-demand Uber. And I'm speaking, also as someone who has experience as a property owner at 255 with rentals, and I have tenants that have no cars at all. The idea here is the promotion of the use of public transportation. The idea is also for that, to consist that promotion of public transportation is very much consistent with the affordability. Mr. Bornstein is talking about, 2 large trucks or SUVs per family. Families at 30% AMI, families at 60% AMI, workforce families, affordable families are not those that are shopping for brand new SUVs and large scale trucks that Mr. Bornstein's talking about. So I think considering both the zone, considering the population, and considering the actual practical use of this, which again is informed by experience, particularly experience developing affordable housing in a downtown. We're not looking, nor is the zoning looking to promote a car dependent, SUV dependent, Ford F-250 dependent lifestyle. And I think that given the expressed intent of the zoning, all of the planning that's gone into the zoning, the planning of the complete streets, that the parking that is being provided is very much consistent with the intent of the zoning and the realistic use and needs of those that are going to be occupying the building. But that is, really on the zoning policy and the practical side. I'll turn it over to the WIN team.
Yeah, if I could just add, thanks, Rob. I think you hit it spot on, but I would also just add that this is going to be, WIN Residential are mine and Adam's counterparts on the residential management side, one of the largest property management companies in the nation that does our own WIN-owned property management and also third-party property management, will be on site and will be monitoring who and where is parking in this parking lot. So our residents will have stickers that will notify that they are residents of this building. They'll have assigned spaces, and our property management team will work with residents to assign spaces that fit the needs of the vehicle that they may own. They're going to have to provide their license, make, model of the cars that they own and are bringing. And so I think that that's an important piece of this. We're not going to assign a Ford truck to a 16-foot spot. The last piece I would just add is that we do a lot of work in a lot of cities and in many municipalities. A 9 by 18, 8.5 by 18 space is a standard size space, and with a 22-foot wide drive aisle. So it provides ample space to turn in and out of the parking space and be able to have doors open on both sides. I think sometimes standard spaces go down to 7 feet wide. I'm not suggesting that here by any means, but I think that we acknowledge that these are compact, but I think that we're all comfortable with operating a high quality building under such conditions.
Thank you. Anyone else on the WIN team? So I can appreciate the practical approach or the practical comments in terms of the thing, but I haven't heard you address the ordinance in a way it works with the dimensions that you're talking about. So, Mr. Brennan, is it before I ask that question, Kate, is it the zoning ordinance requires for non-standard parking spaces requires the zoning board of appeals approval? Because this is in the downtown district and planning board is the permit granting authority, would they go to the zoning board or the planning board for alterations to the parking design requirements?
If relief was necessary, it would be the zoning board of appeals. I believe that to date conversations have been had on the dimensions of the parking to allow for a portion of the parking to be compact for the reasons that have been discussed.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't see how we're getting there through the ordinance, and so that's my question at the time. So it's zoning board of appeals. Okay, so for the purposes of this site plan review. I'm going to take the matter under advisement for zoning, and I will have conversations with staff on the outside. And Mr. Brennan, we will get back to you later today, one way or another, whether or not this will need zoning relief. But yeah, I'll have an answer today, one way or another. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Florence, I just would, I guess my other question was whether Wynn would be able to address this at building permit and, proceed from now to building permit, having gone through informal, we were clear formal, and effectively, proceeding at risk, to and through building permit. But understanding you're taking the matter under advisement.
Yeah, so the way that would work is I would have an answer one way or another today, and whether or not this is approvable. So if it's not approvable because of the parking, then I would not recommend you. Well, you couldn't move forward without zoning board of appeals if it's not approvable. If it is approvable, then yeah, by all means, you'd be able to go ahead and start your permitting process. So I'm not prepared to determine whether or not it's approvable as of this moment. I just need to have some discussions with staff.
Understood. Thank you.
All right. Maggie, for purposes of this meeting, I will take this matter under advisement, and I will make a determination sometime today. All right. I want to thank the Wing team. What a great job you guys did putting that plan together. It's a beautiful project. I think it's going to complement downtown very much. I appreciate Mr. Bornstein's comments, and staff, I appreciate all the work you've put into this as well. So that will conclude today's formal site plan review meeting, and we'll be in touch this afternoon, Mr. Brennan. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.